Hey, you are listening to Oh Crap Parenting with me, your host, Jamie Glowacki. This is a podcast for conscious parents who drop the F-bomb a lot. Hey, you guys. Welcome. Today, I'm very excited because I'm going to be chatting with Sarah Kleiner of Sarah Kleiner Wellness. And she is a certified nutrition and quantum health coach. And we will talk about what the hell that means in a minute. I'm going to let Sarah introduce herself and tell how she got here. I have been following Sarah for a very long time on Instagram, back when she was carnivore, and the carnivore diet did well for her for a while and then did not. And so she changed tactics, but her story's wonderful. So Sarah, why don't you jump in and let everybody know a bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk to you and your community and just a whole new group of people, because I think it's so exciting to really spread this information and kind of help people understand how this stuff works on a very basic level for our own health and for our kids' health.
Yeah.
I did start off my whole social media in 2019 kind of as a joke. I was teaching yoga at the time. I had been teaching yoga since 2012, I believe, 2011, somewhere around there. And I had started doing the carnivore diet because I was having so many issues with my gut, joint pain, skin problems, and it was all kind of coming to a head. I had just turned 40 and I was like, or I was about 39 at the time when I started. And it was just like, what in the world? And so it was like, okay, I'm going to go to a functional medicine doctor, spend all this money on testing and labs, or I could just try this diet and see if it helps. And it really did. I mean, it was like remarkable. And so I started my whole social media as a joke because I was the carnivore yogi, because it's like,
right. Yoga is like more associated with veganism.
Who's like not going to stop their scroll when they see that? Like, what? Because like, aren't yogis supposed to be vegetarian, vegan? And I was for years, and it wrecked my body, that's a whole other topic conversation. I'm not going to go deeply into that.
Well, and I was thinking this morning too, is like, there's a lot of rhetoric online about like these extreme diets. And I think people don't realize that most of us try carnivore because we weren't getting answers from standard medical. Yeah. And like we had all these things. For me, it was debilitating arthritis. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the people that I started working with people all over the world. Because my page picked up a bunch of steam. I already had some nutrition certifications and had been working with clients one-on-one since 2012. So I wasn't new to working with people. But when I started sharing my story online about the dramatic health improvements I was having from this diet, there was people just coming out of the woodwork with debilitating pain, with arthritis, with autoimmune conditions, gut issues. I mean, and it continues, right? People are still suffering with a lot of these problems, and the diet can be helpful. And I still do recommend it to people to be used for periods of time. At a certain point, we want to get people healthy and resilient enough so that they can tolerate other foods. That's where circadian biology and quantum biology enter the picture, because it gives you a model of health that addresses your entire lifestyle and the ability of your mitochondria to be healthy and for your cells to hold a negative charge. All those things are going to help you when it comes to what foods you can tolerate and not. And it was a big learning experience for me, because I had amazing benefits from the diet. And then after about a year, I started, everything wasn't so perfect anymore. And I started being like, oh, maybe my hormones and my thyroid aren't super optimal. And I wanted to have another baby. I had always wanted to have another baby. My daughter, Alexis, she is 16 and a half now. She'll be 17 in December.
Wow.
I know, she's crazy. She's as big as I am.
Yeah.
And she was diagnosed with non-speaking autism. She had a severe regression. That's a whole other story as well. When she was
we'll have part 2 and part 3.
It's like there's like so much, but had this severe regression, lost all of her speech, language, eye contact. And so raising her, and of course, doctors, everyone's like, we've never seen this before, all these challenges she was having. I was just being told by expert after expert, like, oh, sorry, I don't really know what to tell you to do here. Or they would give me stuff to do and it would go really badly. And so it's hard. I mean, raising kids is hard, period. But Alexis just presented well a lot of challenges, and I had to deal with my own personal demons. And so I always wanted a second child, but it was like, oh, okay, when things get easier with her, we'll have the next baby, we'll have the next baby. And it just never got easier. And so around 2020, I had been doing carnivore for a good solid year or so then. We had the pandemic and we're home as a family and we're like, you know what? It's time. Like I turned 40 in 2019 and I was 41. I'm like, we got to have this baby. If we're going to have another baby,
Now or never.
it's time is ticking. Like there's like a biological order to things and we are about to run out of time. And so I'm thinking I've been doing carnivore. I've been strict. I haven't had any processed foods. I've been this will be easy. And I did get pregnant quickly. Unfortunately, I experienced pregnancy loss and another pregnancy loss, and it's devastating. I had never really been through that before with my daughter. It was like you get pregnant, you get the positive test, and it's like, you're okay, we're having a baby. And so this is like a whole new thing and a whole new world that I was kind of understanding was infertility and what a major issue it was and how many women struggle with not only infertility, but secondary infertility is where you've had, a good healthy pregnancy, but you're struggling to get pregnant with another baby after having healthy pregnancies. And it's such a major issue for people. And, I had this thinking of like, I've been carnivore, this will be easy. Right. And it wasn't. And so, I dove
Did you get brushed off a lot because of your age?
I did, and of course my doctors, my standard gynecologist, and then I end up going to fertility doctor. They're just like, because you're 41, this is like, it's just going to be hard for you to get pregnant because after you turn 40, the chances of you getting pregnant go down like exponentially. And this is going to be really hard. And I was told at the IVF clinic, like, you're probably going to have to do 5 or 6 rounds of this. And it may not even work. You might want to look at donor eggs. And I was just like, whoa, I was not expecting this, But yeah, it's a thing a lot of women deal with. And a lot of women get so caught up, with me, I was caught up with Alexis and raising a special needs child and all the challenges that come with that, the sleepless nights, the stress, the multiple therapists, the school system, like just all of it, and my own personal grief and own demons that all popped up for me to deal with.
Right.
And so, but a lot of women get caught in career and they get caught in life and they're like, okay, well now I'm finally quote unquote in a place to have the baby and they're in their late 30s, early 40s and they can't get pregnant. So it's a big, but here's the other thing. When I was in the fertility clinic going through the whole IVF thing, it was not only women my age. I maybe saw 1 or 2 other women my age. I mainly saw women in their 20s and 30s in the clinic, which was shocking to me.
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about hormones, there's a whole cascade of things like that shock me. The amount of women who are going through perimenopause so young and for so long and having horrible symptoms. And our hormones are fucked.
Yeah, it's insane. Like in the whole perimenopause thing right now kind of like gets under my skin a little bit.
Because it's not a part of the female reproductive cycle. That's why it gets under your skin. It's like, it's a word that came out and now everybody like uses it, but it's really not part of our cycle. Yeah.
It's not like, and
I'm like ranting against it now.
are supposed to shift as we age. They are supposed to shift and change. Yeah. But we're not supposed to suffer the way that women are suffering right now. Right. And that's what drives me crazy is like, I just turned 45. I still have, painless 28-day cycles. And that's not by accident. I don't suffer with horrible mood swings and hot flashes and all of those things, anxiety, depression that I do see a lot of women struggling with. So I'm not wanting to sit here and say that women are making things up and it's all in their head. Yeah, they are having
I didn't
these issues. I know you didn't mean that.
Yeah.
But just for anybody listening, like I don't want to come off that way because I know that women are definitely struggling. But I don't know, the amount of women that I've worked with in my community, that have overcome these issues in their 40s and 50s. And I've seen women just kind of like sail into menopause. Like I didn't have a period for 12 months, but I didn't have hot flashes, mood swings. I didn't suffer
Right.
through this phase of my life. I was able to go into it and through it gracefully. I've seen that at this point hundreds of times, because these women are dialed in. And yeah, there's a lot of fear around perimenopause and menopause. And I think if you have the right strategies, it doesn't have to be so horrible.
You don't want to suffer. Yeah. Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah, no, I'll be 56 this year. And it's like just fading off into the distance. It's not, I haven't gone 12 months yet, but it's definitely going just away. No hot flashes, no waking, no brain fog, none of the typical symptoms. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Because you are taking care of yourself. And that's a true testament to your nutrition and lifestyle and things that you're doing to take care of
Yeah,
yourself.
let's get into that because quantum health sounds so scary. I remember like seeing it, maybe you like, a lot of people are talking about it. And I remember like having a visceral, like I was on an electric fence because it just reminds me of like quantum physics. And I was like, I don't know what quantum health is, but I'm not going to get it. And so why don't you go into that and circadian biology? Because that's what I think is so helpful for kids. And there's just so many basic things we could be doing that can radically shift everything.
Yeah. And it's basically like when I'm talking about quantum health and quantum biology in this kind of frame of reference, I'm talking about making these little small changes to support your mitochondria, to really support your body on this bioelectrical kind of a model, because we often are looking at the body through a biochemical model. And that's what I was doing with fertility, with IVF, with all this stuff. Is like, I'm measuring my hormones and I'm going to supplement this and get this result out. I'm going to do this and get this result out. And I didn't understand circadian biology, quantum biology, and how these little signals that we can send our bodies through the day and in our lifestyle can create huge changes and shifts in our mitochondrial health. And everyone's so caught up on the genetic model and genes, but mitochondria really run the show more so, I think, than genetics. Now, yeah, genetics are going to get expressed when your mitochondria begin to function poorly. Your body is making less energy, less cellular water. So genes do get expressed in that case. But
and what's the one takeaway from high school biology? The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So we make ATP, which is energy, right? And so mitochondria and the health of your mitochondria essentially are how well does your body make energy, and how well can you process energy, which would be food, sunlight, all these things are energy inputs for your body. And I think that poor mitochondrial health is really a major root cause, and loss of cellular water, cellular hydration is a major root cause of a lot of our health issues. And it was Dr. Jack Cruz. He came on my podcast back in 2021, and he was basically the one. And, I was doing this thing with my podcast back in 2021 when I was trying to get pregnant. Every guest I had on, my hidden agenda was to talk to them off camera about their thought on like why I couldn't get pregnant. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, everyone was so kind, and I had so many amazing people that offered me amazing advice and like really helpful. Like Dr. Kiltz was one of them. He's a big carnivore influencer now. He talked to me on the phone multiple times. Just like one of the kindest people. I will still tell everyone Dr. Kiltz is one of the kindest people I've ever talked to in my life. But his thing was just like basically like carnivore harder, do more fasting, and I was like, I just don't think that's the ticket for me. And what Dr. Cruz told me was that I needed to study leptin and I needed to study light, circadian biology. And he kind of threw me into this rabbit hole. So Cruz got me started on the path. And then I began to connect with others in that community. My friend and colleague, Carrie Bennett, we have a podcast together called Quantum Conversations. Dr. Corey Gasvini, those two were very instrumental for me understanding and applying this information, because Cruz can be really confusing and a bit off-putting, let's face it.
I just
And
heard somebody talk about him on a podcast and say that it's like trying to sip water from a fire hydrant. Like his knowledge, the way he like,
it's a
gives you.
lot. It's
Yeah.
a lot. It's hard to understand. The average person can't decipher what he's saying or read his blogs. He's put out a ton of great information, but it can be hard to sift through and understand. And so Carrie and Dr. Gasvini were my go-to people. And I also was in the first cohort of the Quantum Biology Collective coaching program. So I was certified in levels 1 and 2, and I'm actually sitting for my board exams tomorrow to be board certified in applied quantum biology. So I'm studying today and tomorrow for that. And
Nice.
yeah, and Cruz is not involved in that at all. And, so he got me started. I have to give him credit for that. But a lot of what I've learned and applied has been from these other teachers that I've had in my life, Dr. Gerald Pollack, Veda Austin. I mean, there's so many amazing people that are putting out really tremendous, wonderful work that I've taken and applied on myself and with clients. But for your average person who's listening, like, what does this mean? What does this entail? Every single cell and organ system in your body has a circadian clock in front of it, including your hormones, right? Our hormones all go on a circadian clock. The
And explain circadian, because I think most people understand circadian rhythm and respect to sleep, but talk about like just the word circadian for a sec.
Yeah, I mean, just that. It's a 24-hour-ish cycle that our body is meant to run on. And it's meant to be timed up with light and dark cycles, respectively, like where you live. Now, of course, if you live somewhere like a far northern latitude where it doesn't get dark in the winter and we have these like long days and really short nights, and in the winter, the opposite. You have to use a little bit of engineering, right? Like blue blockers, blackout curtains, because you're not going to just like only sleep for like an hour a day. Like if you were timed up to those cycles, it probably would not bring you optimal health. And you might go, there's a lot of actual like insanity in those countries. Like just a little side note, like there's a lot of bipolar and a lot of manic episodes of people in those countries. So I mean, yeah, there's something to that. But I'm pretty happy here in the 33rd latitude here in Georgia. It's reasonable. It's in most of the US is pretty reasonable that we can do this timing of circadian biology. And so Dr. Sachin Panda has written a lot on this as well. I think his book, The Circadian Code, where he really provides the data and the research of, again, how every single organ system in your body is supposed to run on a circadian timer, like our gut clock, for example. This is why eating at night can be so detrimental to your health, because your gut is meant to stop functioning in the evening and at night, right? And we're supposed to start making melatonin, human growth hormone. And melatonin is this master antioxidant that is responsible for cleaning up all this damage, repairing things, regenerating, autophagy, apoptosis, all these benefits that biohackers talk about. Your body has the ability to do it when you are really exposing your body to proper light and dark cycles.
So let's go. Can we just slow it down even more? So eating at night, let's define eating at night, because I think some people hear eating at night as like midnight snacking or like binging with a thing of popcorn and Netflix. Or do you mean like having dinner past dark?
Well, ideally, you don't want to eat if the sun's not up, but we're always going to get the people like, okay, I live in Canada and the sun goes down at like 3 p.m. What do I do? So in those situations, I'm going to say in the wintertime, try to have an earlier dinner. The earlier is better, but like 5, 6 o'clock at night is pretty reasonable for dinner. And then you're going to try to go to bed a little earlier in the wintertime. We're supposed to make more melatonin. Summertime, we're supposed to make more vitamin D. They're both hormones, and the receptor site is actually very similar. And there's evidence that they share some receptor activity, which is pretty interesting. And so, yeah, in the wintertime, we want to eat a little bit less, eat a little bit earlier, try to keep the dinner like 4 hours, 3 hours away from bedtime. And then in the summer, it's easier because sun goes down a bit later. But I still, even in the summer, try to keep my last meal, 3-4 hours away from bedtime, just because.
And does that go for kids too?
Kids are a bit more insulin sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I try to, with my kids, if they are really asking for something to eat before bed, stick to something like meat and cheese,
Okay.
something that's not going to spike insulin
Okay.
and cause a big blood sugar response, because insulin and leptin have a similar receptor site in the brain. And we want leptin to be able to dock to the brain at night while you're sleeping, so that this kind of like download of energy information can happen. And that's going to tell your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones, your all of these different processes in your body is going to kind of give directions to it. And if insulin is up, again, insulin and leptin are going to compete for that docking space in the brain at night. That usually happens between, midnight and 2 a.m. So if your insulin's up at that time, that download of information of like how much stored energy is on my body to regulate my metabolism, thyroid, sex hormones, all this stuff that can't happen.
Okay.
And so people end up becoming leptin resistant. And kids now are like little girls are having like PCOS and major insulin resistance, weight loss problems. I have unfortunately, I have a niece who's pre-diabetic and 7, and it breaks
Yeah.
my heart. I'm like, there's no need for this. This is just tragic, right? And
Yeah.
so, with kids, like, yeah, we don't want to be feeding them like chocolate milk and ice cream and probably not even really like popcorn and stuff like that before bed. I would stick to more like meat and cheese, like something more um blood sugar friendly.
Protein, fat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
would that affect melatonin release too? Because I work with all kinds of clients whose kids just struggle. Like nighttime's just a nightmare for everybody. And so that's one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you about like melatonin release and then light and how much light affects us.
hmm Yeah. I mean, we need 4 hours of darkness in order for the body to begin making pineal melatonin. So we make melatonin subcellularly in the mitochondria. That's about 95% of our melatonin. That's in response to infrared light. And that's a whole other conversation because most people don't get any infrared light exposure due to our modern world. Right. And so that's one issue. Most people are like not getting any infrared. And then the second issue is, yeah, we need 4 hours of darkness before our body can even start making that pineal melatonin. And so, what are most people doing before bed? They're watching TV, they've got iPads, phone screens, overhead lights, LEDs, all these lights on. And so your kid's not tired because the brain is being told. So blue light is the timekeeper. So blue light coming in through the eyes basically tells the brain via the suprachiasmatic nucleus, make cortisol. It is daytime. We need to make cortisol. That is this very simplistic way of understanding this. And so if you are in a blue light enriched environment in the evening, your body is still going to think it is daytime and is still going to continue making cortisol. And cortisol and melatonin oppose one another. So they cannot, one has to be high and the other has to be low. So in the evening time, we need to ideally stop eating the big meal because eating also elicits a small cortisol response. Now, it's not bad. Cortisol is not evil. There's this whole cortisol thing going on social media.
The internet. If a little is good, more is better, right?
It's a little out of control right now with the cortisol conversations, but it's not evil. It's not bad. But just when you do eat, it does bring cortisol up a little bit, which is going to prevent melatonin. But the huge issue again is the blue light and what that does to prevent pineal melatonin release. And so, if you have kids, and what we do here, because everyone's like, oh my gosh, now what are we going to do? You can I take screens away at 7:30. Like no more screens. If you do have a TV on, blue blockers are really helpful. There's a cheap brand called Spectra 479 that you can get on Amazon if you're like skeptical. You don't want to buy one of the nicer pairs like Raw Optics or Viva Rays. Those are the really nice ones. But the blue blockers are really, really helpful in allowing the body to start to shut down and giving you that 4 hours needed for the pineal melatonin to be released and stopping that cortisol production. That's what's really, really crucial.
Right.
So that I think
isn't an easy fix like red lights, right? Like putting in red light bulbs, because I find my audience tends to be I don't say this with like superiority, but more conscious. Like a lot of people aren't watching iPads. Their kids don't get nighttime screen time.
Good.
But I think people forget about the big light,
Like,
the overhead lights that, and these houses are cavernous now. We have these like open concept with these bucket lights that are just shining down. So I know I switched out. Well, I went to KetoCon with Danny Hamilton and she took our
oh,
whole
nice.
Airbnb and like made it red light.
I love it. I'm going to stay with her in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. And so,
Yeah.
we, and that like super helps. And
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
great, and I think for parents, like it also signals like kids are so susceptible to the Pavlovian response too, which is like we're settling down. Red light mimics firelight, right? So like it's a cue that the whole house is settling down because I think, like you said, the modern world is just crazy for parents. They're coming in the door at 6 p.m. trying to get, and then it's like dinner, bath, stories. Okay, why isn't my kid tired? And you're like, whoa, that was a train coming through the house,
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So, and my husband's finally used to it now after like 4 years of me changing out all the bulbs and turning out everything. He's just like, all right, this is just what she does.
Oh, that's my son. My son's 18 and I get the eye roll. And I was like, shut
Yeah.
up. You look good, don't you? You feel good, don't you?
Right. Exactly. I'm like, you sleep good. You fall asleep as soon as you hit the pillow. Like yeah. And men are less sensitive to blue light than women. And so any of the lady listeners, your husband is probably going to push back on you. And they are less sensitive to blue light. Dr. Scott Zimmerman, he is another one of the world's leading researchers on melatonin. He and Dr. Russell Ryder, and he has his own light bulb company. I think it's called Nira, Nira. And I need to get him on my podcast, but he he has his own light bulb company. So if you're looking for good light bulbs that are scientist approved to change out some of your bulbs in the house, those are ones that I recommend. But yeah, I mean that it is something that, and he's the one who says that women are more sensitive to blue light. So I'm the one who, if someone turns on a big overhead light, I'm like, and I've always been that way. Like before I even started doing this stuff, I've always been like super grossed out by like bright LED overhead lights. Like they almost make me want to throw up.
Me too, but I'm just vain. They make you look crappy.
Oh, they do make you look terrible.
I like the airbrushing of the soft light.
Oh, I know, me too. Yeah, but women are more sensitive to the blue light.
Okay, so I want to come at this like for those of you listening. So moms, listen to this, okay? Because what is the biggest thing that I rally against in this podcast is quote unquote me time after the kids go to bed, that you binge television and or you're on your phone doing research, signing up for camps, but you're in bed with your phone. This is affecting your sleep. And the best thing you can do is put those blue blockers on if you've got to, but honestly, log off. Like it's
because you're still going to have dopamine going. And dopamine blocks melatonin also.
Yep. And that your me time, even though you're not conscious of it, the best me time you can have is great sleep because then you're energized in the morning.
And here's a little hack. I don't know if I'll like offend some people by saying this, but like you can hop over the 4 hours of darkness by stimulating oxytocin production. So breastfeeding moms, don't look at your phone when you're breastfeeding because that's going to stop oxytocin production. And you are able, because I get breastfeeding moms a lot. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm breastfeeding. My sleep is wrecked. I'm like, you have a biological biohack built in. When you're breastfeeding, you're making oxytocin and you can fall asleep and start making melatonin immediately without that 4 hours of darkness needed. So if you have to wake up at night and breastfeed, do not look at your phone, wear some blue blockers, keep the lights, use the blue blocking bulbs, and you're going to be able to go right back to sleep. You don't need that 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
Or, if your husband, partner.
I was going to say there's a lot of leeway here in the,
or, you need that. Like,
are you saying sex and nipple stimulation might help your sleep too? I'll say the word so you don't have to.
Yes. Still wear your blue blockers, but like,
get to it, ladies.
This could be super, super helpful. So
that's a great hack though. Like if you feel like, oh my God, I need to get to sleep.
Exactly.
Okay. So we have meal timing, which is really for adults, especially women, try to get, don't be eating like before 3 or 4 hours, stop eating 3 or 4 hours before bedtime. For kids, if they have to have a snack, something like protein and fat, then we have red lights to help release the melatonin, right? And then you said, I know infrared light is a whole nother subject, but is infrared light the light in the morning? Is that
We have infrared from daybreak until nightfall. So even before sunrise, there's like an abundance of red and near infrared. It's actually blue light begins to become come on the horizon at sunrise, and
okay?
so you can get tons of red and near infrared all day long, really. But it's really going to be most rich and abundant, like right before sunrise and at sunrise time, before UV even comes online, and then in the evening at sunset and after sunset, like nightfall. But we have infrared available from literally night sun, like daybreak, even before sunrise to nightfall. So all you need to do to get infrared is go outside. And then you can also, Zimmerman, again, the scientist I mentioned earlier, he and writer did a study that basically showed you can get infrared when you're sitting in the shade, and sunlight bounces off of green leaves, trees, and plants to your skin. And infrared can penetrate through your skin. So you don't have to be naked to get infrared. So literally, just going outside, you're getting infrared light. And this is making that subcellular melatonin. So I liken it to like a mother who is kind of going around the house, like picking up socks all day. That's what it was going on for your cells, for the health of your mitochondria. Like you're pumping this melatonin, this master antioxidant, and making more exclusion zone water by going out, getting this natural light on your skin. And you don't have to be in the middle of the day with a really strong UV, which can, have its own issues if you're not used to it. You can do it in the morning, in the evening, just any time of day. And then you're going to make this subcellular melatonin. So when you get to sleep, the pineal melatonin can really do its job and really, really support cellular health and really regenerate and help you repair all the damage that's happened during the day. But during the day, just getting infrared on your skin is going to help with that night's sleep as well. And then one more thing about melatonin, you actually make when those aromatic amino acids in your eyes capture photons from light in UVA, which happens right after sunrise, you are making serotonin, which is recycled into that night's melatonin. So the serotonin that you make in the morning is used that evening to make pineal melatonin. So if you can get your kids outside in the morning, especially, just not super strong UV, so you don't have to necessarily be worried about the sunburn and the sun damage at that time of day.
Yeah, not at sunrise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids, like, when I get up in the morning, we have a beautiful, like, little screened in patio, which I love. The door is open. The kids come out on the patio with me. We eat breakfast out there. We hang out there. We hear the birds. It's just like a really lovely way to start the day. I take the dog in the yard. We do some grounding, and that morning time is very sacred. We don't do screens, TV, don't turn on like a bunch of overhead lights, because I want this like natural hormone production to start for myself and for the kids in the morning. It's so important to do it that way.
Yeah, and so people like, and you're not supposed to wear sunglasses or sunscreen, right? Because I know everybody has differing opinions on the sun. I like the sun. I sit out in the sun, obviously. But that morning light, it's really key that you don't have sunglasses on or sunscreen, right? Because you really want that. I call it the colostrum of sunlight.
It
Right?
is.
Because I always, I'm a
now.
hunter, and I'm also, my dog needs to get out on the trails before everybody else. I live in the middle of the woods. So like we get out. And so I'm so acclimated to that slow, like we go out in the dark and you see the sun start to come out. And then, so I thought moving to the woods just lowered my cortisol because I don't have neighbors. I don't hear siren, like I don't hear anything. I wake up to trees. But now I'm realizing, like, from following you, that probably I'm getting all these other things just quite accidentally.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why that we grew up really connected. I mean, our civilization kind of came to be very connected to light and dark cycles, to nature. We had fire, but the electric light bulb wasn't invented, and electricity was just the last couple hundred years, right?
Yeah.
And then, there's some people say that that's when a lot of, these modern diseases began and accelerated. I think there's so many other factors just besides the light, but there is an interesting correlation to different cancers and these artificial lights.
Yeah.
And then the incandescent bulbs now are being phased out completely and illegal in some places. And as all LEDs and fluorescents are the only thing you can buy, the energy efficient bulbs, and those have no infrared. And
Yeah.
so incandescent bulbs still have infrared. And those were actually the bulbs that were used by Dr. Gerald Pollack, who's done all the research on exclusion zone water, which is what our body is comprised like 99% of this, exclusion zone water. He showed just by exposing this exclusion zone water to an infrared light bulb that it expanded up to fourfold. And so you increase the amount of exclusion zone water in your body when you expose your body to infrared. And we have zero indoors because our windows are so energy efficient, because if we allowed infrared to come in through the glass, our houses would overheat, right?
Right.
And so we're in these environments where we're making no subcellular melatonin during the day, and then we're blocking the production of pineal melatonin at night through our indoor modern lives. And it's something that is an easy fix. You go outside, you change some light bulbs out, you get darkness at night. It's such an easy, simple fix, but it's being completely overlooked and missed. And I think to the detriment of so many people, because just going back to the original story that we were talking about, that is how I ended up getting pregnant and giving birth at age 43, was changing my light and dark signaling. Essentially, I did do a lot of grounding, cold plunging, time out in nature, red light therapy, but that I put under the umbrella of quantum health strategies as well, not necessarily biohacking, but more quantum health strategies. But yeah, and I've had so many women. I have a woman now in my community who's on her second pregnancy doing these protocols with me and being a part of my group. And she had previously like multiple miscarriages, failed IVF, and she just did these things. And now she's pregnant with her second baby.
These are such easy, I love that these are easy fixes, but I love too that they're like I just got like this glowing feeling in my heart when you talked about your sacred morning. And I just keep trying to get parents to slow down with their kids because we're just going at breakneck speed. Anxiety in kids is so high, seeing dramatic behaviors. And so just the idea of let's go out and put our bare feet in the grass. What an easy activity. And so for the busy moms, if you're listening to this, don't get caught up. Sarah, you're fucking so knowledgeable about this. I'm going to have to look up so many things after we get off. But I mean, I feel like if I keep asking you, we'll be here for 7 hours. But I think, let's go through these really easy strategies, because I'm the kind of person, that's even how I happened upon carnivore. Is when I first heard of it, I was like, oh my God, these people, are you fucking kidding me? No vegetables, come on. And then Amber O'Hearn, I heard her say, try it for 30 days. You won't die. You won't, and I tried it for 30 days and so much pain and weird things were alleviated. So let's give parents some easy things, because maybe they'll jump in and be like, I feel better. Now I want to learn why.
Yeah. I mean, I would just start with trying to get yourself and your kids out there in the morning, and you don't have to be perfect about it. My partner, Carrie Bennett, she's got 3 kids. And when she first started this, it was the dead of winter, and she lives in Michigan, which is pretty close to Canada. It's freezing cold. There's snow on the ground, cold. And she literally would just open her door and stick her head out for 30-second intervals in the morning. And that's how she really started, was in the dead of winter doing this stuff. And it doesn't take, like I said, it's quantum. So it's a very small signal that yields a large result. And it does build up. It is cumulative. So you can get 2 minutes here, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes here. You don't have to go out there and be out. I mean, ideally, you're out there for a solid amount of time. We got kids, jobs, but we're busy. We have things we have to do. So do what you can and start to build on that. And I find that people, they start to feel better quickly. And I've got school teachers doing this, that are stuck in classrooms all day. They have found out ways to bioengineer this a little bit.
You have to get clever. Yeah. And it's I hear that a lot, is I don't have time. And I thank God that my dog just happens to be reactive to other dogs. And so I have to get him out early, because it doesn't matter if it's a blizzard, he needs 5 miles. So I'm out there doing that no matter what. But I have to because otherwise he'll be up my ass all day and I'm not willing to do that either. So the get outside is the most important, switching out the lights. Let's talk really quickly about seasonal food, light codes in food. What is that all about?
I mean, it all is like such common sense when you really think about it. But our food contains the information about the time of day, the time of year, where we are on the planet. And when you kind of geotag yourself to that by doing circadian biology, understanding and following light and dark cycles, you start to realize like food is the same thing. It's a signature of, again, where you are on the planet, what is growing locally and seasonally to you, what is available to you at this time of year and what is not. Should we be, I think we kind of intuitively know that we shouldn't be eating a bunch of processed foods with, all these different ingredients. There's a whole other conversation about deuterium that can be had around that. Dr. Laszlo Boris is a good person to look at for that. But like just on a very simple level, if there are like tomatoes growing out of my garden, I should eat them when they're growing. I should not necessarily try to eat tomatoes when they're not growing in the middle of like December. And plus, like they don't really even like taste that
They
good.
don't taste good. They're expensive. And this is part of, like, I preach this a lot here on this podcast, is that's where we get into overload. Like I don't like nightshades because it can affect my arthritis. So if I'm having tomatoes year round, that's going to make it worse. Oxalates. We're not supposed to have spinach all year
All
long.
year
And if
round.
you grow it yourself, you get like, you get like 5 handfuls because, and then by
Hey,
the time you cook it down, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And I
or
have
like
a woman
blueberries are in
who's
season
like,
right now. We're gonna binge on blueberries and then blueberries are done. Yeah.
right. Right. Oh, there's a woman that just did my practitioner leptin course, and she had suffered with severe autoimmune disease for years and years. And she's done carnivore. That's how she found me also, is carnivore. And now she's able to eat these like small amounts of nightshades that are growing where she lives seasonally to her. She doesn't go eat pounds of them. She can eat a little bit of them, but these used to give her debilitating pain with rheumatoid
Hmm.
arthritis and swelling. And now she can handle small amounts of them when they are in season. And so it's just a barcode of like the time of year and time of day too, because we're not supposed to be eating, like our gut clock is supposed to stop, slow down so that we can repair and heal. Our gut lining is supposed to recycle every 3 days or so. I saw this, like, I think it was like Dr. Axe was like, your gut lining recycles every 3 days and your bones regenerate. Da, da, da. And he was like talking about how amazing the human body is. But guess what doesn't happen? Any of that stuff doesn't happen if you are like surrounding yourself with a bunch of blue light. Your body's making a bunch of cortisol and you don't get to make enough melatonin for this regenerative process to happen. That's
Right.
great. That's what our human body is capable of doing, but it's not happening for people clearly, or we wouldn't be so sick. And so,
Right. We need to get out of the way. And I remember when I first heard about like food has a light code, and I thought, wow, that's really out there, hippy dippy. And then like the more I thought about it, I was like, well, I always
makes
preach
sense.
local and seasonal because it teaches you what to eat. Eat local and seasonal. And I live in New England. And guess what? In February, we're having root vegetables that have been stored in the cellar
Yes.
and meat that maybe was
Yes.
preserved,
Yeah.
And so I think we do go through these feasts and famines in the modern
Yeah.
grocery store.
We're
We just don't
supposed
feel
to.
like it.
We're supposed to fast. We're not supposed to be like in an eternal summer. And that's essentially what we have created in our modern society, is eternal summer
Well, the
with
whole
these.
eat the rainbow year round, that's not
No,
logistically possible in most places.
no, it's not. It doesn't make sense. We're not supposed to be in this like a perpetual, like full harvest of abundance all the time. Our bodies are meant to fast and are meant to be fat adapted and go into ketosis. People will say, "Oh, it's so dangerous." No, it's something we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to do it year round, but we are supposed to be able to kind of pump the brakes sometimes, push the gas with the metabolism, and that's a
Right.
sign of a healthy metabolism. You can burn fat for fuel when needed in times of like less food, and then also in the times of like the abundance, the harvest. Yeah, burn sugar for fuel, glucose for fuel. So it's not like it doesn't have to be this like dogmatic thing like I was doing in carnivore. I think like at about a year, my body was like, okay, we've been fasting, we've been in ketosis for like a year now. So, like, obviously, we're in this like famine. So, we're just
Right.
going to push your thyroid function down. Your sex hormones are just like all going to go to the toilet. Like, sorry, because like you're just obviously
Not the
not,
time to reproduce because you're clearly in a famine. Yeah.
you're in a famine. Sorry. So, we're just going to like downregulate these systems because, okay, we see it as evolutionarily like necessary. So,
Right.
I don't want to demonize diets of any sort, but that's just like how our body works. And when you can look at your health through this lens of circadian biology and quantum biology, it just makes sense. It just
Yeah,
makes
it does. And I think too, if for anybody listening, any part of this might sound daunting, but I can attest I used to not like to eat breakfast. I do intermittent fasting just naturally. I just feel like my body likes
I skip
14,
dinner.
16 hours just to
Yeah.
digest. But I normally eat like probably around 2 or 3, but I'm up at 4:30. I'm out for the sunrise. I eat when I get home. It's always like eggs and burger or something like that. And then like naturally I just stop eating. Of course, if there's a party or something or a barbecue, I might eat a little later, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, and then I'm in bed, that sun goes down. Dude, it's horrible for me in the winter because my melatonin, the sun goes down and I'm out. So like
Yeah.
New
You're
England at
supposed to sleep
4:30 in the
more,
middle of winter, I'm
right?
like, oh, I have to stay up. I can't go to bed at 4:30. It's terrible. But
I
you
mean,
can
cold
you can
and dark have tremendous benefits to the mitochondria, right?
yeah.
Cold actually shrinks the space between the respiratory proteins in the mitochondria so we can make more water so they can be more efficient. So, cold and dark are not a bad thing. And when you get further away from the equator, the further north you go, there's more magnetism. And so you can actually get more benefits of grounding. And there's less UV, there's less radiation to interfere with pulling those electrons into the body. And so there's benefits. I get a lot, oh, I live in Canada. I can't do anything that you say. Yeah, you can. There's cold, there's dark, and there's still sun. There's still infrared. Like, so if it's raining and it's cloudy, there's an abundance of infrared and there's enough lux, there's enough brightness available for your brain to get the benefits that it needs for depression, anxiety, and mood and weight control. You just actually do have to go outside. Like, you just can't like stay
But
inside.
everybody knows this, right? Anybody who experiences winter, or if you're in Portland, Oregon, and you've got, 306 days of rain, when the sun comes out, everybody's freaking happier.
Oh yeah,
Everybody's happier.
100%.
Road rage goes
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
right? Like we know this. So but I think we just forget and
Yeah.
we get caught in the trappings of busyness and like, I don't have
Yep.
time or, yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Well, Sarah, this has been amazing. So I just want to reiterate, we've got meal timing, red lights and blue blockers. We get infrared sun. That's your morning sunlight, your sunrise, your sunset. Eat seasonally, right? And those are the easiest things you can do. Those are the huge dial movers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for your kids
Exactly.
too. For your
Yeah.
kids too.
Yeah, the kids, they're not separated off from this information. It benefits them as well.
They're
And they
crazy.
are
They're
more
little humans.
sensitive to light. Yeah. John Ott has a little thing you can watch on YouTube called Health and Light. And they did all these experiments with children and saw their behaviors change under these bright fluorescent lights. I mean, they saw it in real, it's legitimate. And you might even notice it with your kids. They act crazy if you give them a bunch of screens and turn a bunch of overhead fluorescent lights on. They act crazy. Why? I mean, because it's going against their biology and it's bringing up cortisol, dopamine, all these things that we're not meant to have elevated all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, I think a lot of parents now are really recognizing like no screens at night, but I think everybody forgets about the fluorescent lighting, the LED lighting, the overhead lights. Yeah, for sure.
All of
Well,
it.
just based on this conversation, I can say you're going to ace your board exams because you
I hope
just
so.
like rattled off a bunch of information. So tell people where they can find you. And you have like a lot of offerings. You have like a leptin course, right?
Yeah, I have a 21-day leptin reset course that's basically like a blueprint of how to put all this together for you, nutrition, light, based on where you live, all that stuff. So that's like really my signature course. I have people start there if they want to take some of my classes. And then I have a ton of free ebooks also.
Okay.
So if you are new to this, you just want to get your feet wet, just go to sarahkleinerwellness.com and then check out my free resources. You can get any of those. There's like 13 free ebooks on there.
Nice.
everything from hydration to blue blockers, how to use them appropriately, to there's a ton of information.
Nice. Oh, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time today to chat with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And as always, you guys, I appreciate you listening. Rock on and have a beautiful day. Okay, bye everyone. Just a reminder, if you need additional resources, I have Oh Crap Potty Training. I have Oh Crap, I Have a Toddler. Those books are available everywhere you want to find a book. You can also go to my website, jamieglowacki.com, where you can book private sessions with me, buy any of my courses. Those are really geared towards potty training help. And also I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook anymore, and I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, jamie.glowacki, and I do a lot of lives and usually posting a lot of good information. So those are extra resources for you. And as always, rock on. Have an awesome day.